The babysitter sends a photo to her mother. She sees it and calls the authorities. Any parent will tell you how crucial it is to find a truly great babysitter. After all, everyone needs to go out occasionally. It's especially stressful if you live far from family or don't have anyone close by to care for your little one. In such cases, you might have to search for a trustworthy babysitter in your area. But how do you know who to choose? This was precisely the dilemma Claudia Sorindo found herself in when she saw a photo of her daughter and froze immediately. Claudia Sorindo lived alone in Florida with her young daughter, Ava. She did her best to always be there for Ava, but being a working mother meant that wasn't always possible. Work required Ava to attend daycare every day, and then Claudia received an email about an out-of-town meeting she absolutely could not miss. She couldn't bring Ava with her, which posed a problem she had no immediate solution for. Claudia felt stuck between a rock and a hard place. She was doing quite well as a full-time working single mother, but this was before she had been promoted, making her presence at distant business meetings necessary. This was her first major meeting, and missing it would not leave a good impression. To make matters worse, she had already used up all her leave when Ava was sick the previous week. She had no choice but to seek help. Claudia reached out to her friends and family, knowing everyone's schedules were just as busy as hers. She hoped, against all odds, that a responsible adult would be available to watch Ava. Unfortunately, luck was not on her side, and the only available person was far too young for Claudia's comfort. At her sister's suggestion, Claudia's 15-year-old niece, Jean, volunteered to care for Ava over the weekend. Claudia had hired a babysitter before, but it hadn't gone well. The issue wasn't Jean's lack of experience. She had babysat many children before, but it was different when it came to her own child. Claudia couldn't shake the uneasy feeling in her gut when thinking about it. Claudia knew Jean well, but she had no idea the decision she was about to make would change her life forever. With time running out before her trip, Claudia had to make a decision immediately. No one else had been able to commit to caring for Ava, and the moment of truth had arrived. She either risked her job by missing the trip or left her precious daughter in the care of her 15-year-old niece. Ultimately, she chose the latter, a decision she would come to regret, though she didn't know it yet. Jean arrived slightly early, which Claudia took as a good sign, though it wasn't enough to calm her nerves. Her mind raced with every imaginable fear. Jean was familiar with the house, so Claudia quickly walked her through the essentials: where baby food was stored, how to prepare it, where the diapers were, and all the other small details. She handed Jean a long list of emergency contact numbers, which, as it turned out, would later prove useless. Soon, Claudia was in a taxi, and before she knew it, she was boarding a plane. Her most nerve-wracking moment came when she had to put her phone on airplane mode, cutting herself off from any updates. Though the flight wasn't long, Claudia counted the minutes until landing. She tried to focus on preparing for her meeting, but her thoughts kept drifting to Ava, wondering if everything was okay. As the hours passed, her anxiety grew. With no news coming in, she felt a mounting unease. The plane was full that day, with passengers jostling to find the best spots for their carry-on luggage. The cramped space made Claudia feel claustrophobic, and she loosened her collar to breathe more easily. The tight space and crowded conditions didn't help ease her nerves. Thoughts of Ava turned her uneasiness into outright panic. She just wanted to arrive already to check on what Jean was doing at home. Finally, the plane began its descent. Seatbelt fastened, Claudia braced for landing. As soon as the plane touched down, she powered on her phone, eager for updates. Her phone lit up and a message appeared on the screen. It was a photo from Jean, sent shortly after takeoff. So in fact, the message was several hours old. The small thumbnail showed something that sent terror coursing through her veins. Ava's legs appeared completely deformed. What had happened? Claudia's brain couldn't comprehend what had happened to her baby in the photo. She tried to stay calm as she opened the thumbnail for a better look. The sight of her baby looking so strange, almost contorted, was the last thing she had expected. She needed more information and tapped on the message to see what Jean had written to explain the photo. Jean had some serious explaining to do. The message seemed far too mundane for the disturbing image that was twisting Claudia's brain into knots. For clarity, the 15-year-old's message made no sense. Jean was talking about wanting to make a sandwich. Making food in the kitchen would mean leaving little Ava alone for a short period, however brief. Unfortunately, Claudia's exhausted and overwhelmed mind gave way to instinct. She pressed the speed dial button for 911. Her daughter's legs were so swollen that she couldn't believe what her eyes were showing her. Claudia had never seen the pants Ava was wearing in the photo either. Her muddled brain simply couldn't make sense of the situation. Was it an allergy she didn't know about? Her mind raced through every terrible scenario until, finally, it clicked. She looked at the photo again, more closely. She realized she had made a huge mistake. Jean was, in fact, an incredibly resourceful babysitter. Knowing how protective her aunt was, Jean had thought it unacceptable to leave baby Ava alone for even a second. So, she had come up with a solution to the problem. The 15-year-old problem solver had improvised a makeshift kangaroo pouch using a pair of particularly stretchy pants. Little Ava was comfortably nestled close to her babysitter. It was an extremely creative solution. Because Claudia couldn't immediately understand what was happening in the photo, her first reaction had been to seek medical help for her child as quickly as possible. She thought Ava was in desperate need of attention. Only after calming down did she finally grasp what was actually happening on the screen. Laughter burst out of her, attracting stares from everyone on the plane. The clever teenager had figured out how to be the most responsible babysitter of all time and still make herself a sandwich. At last, Claudia admitted that Jean was more than capable of caring for Ava. Relief washed over her, and another laugh escaped her lips. Her niece had certainly found the most original way to take care of a baby. Jean truly deserved recognition, and Claudia made sure she got it. Claudia turned to social media to share the ingenious solution her niece had concocted in the kitchen. So, I asked my niece to babysit my baby, Ava. Later, I got a text saying Jean wanted to make a sandwich but wouldn't do it because she didn't want to let Ava out of her sight. Lord send help. This was her solution, creativity at its best. Facebook, of course, was ready with its response. An image this funny was bound to go viral, though how long it would take varied. As expected, the internet praised the teenage babysitter's creativity. Even better, Claudia had finally found a reliable and competent babysitter for whenever she needed to leave town. The comments on Facebook were overwhelming. Among the most frequent were questions about where other mothers and caregivers could get their hands on similar kangaroo pants. It was a much cheaper alternative to expensive baby carriers. The post garnered nearly 300,000 likes and shares, sparking an idea. Claudia was about to embark on her own entrepreneurial adventure. Jean hopes to raise enough money to create her own version of the pants. Claudia, being the supportive aunt that she is, even launched a crowdfunding page on GoFundMe to see if they could raise enough money for Jean to kickstart her business idea. Now Jean just needs to figure out the right business model. As with all good ideas, everyone now wishes they had thought of it first. One Facebook commenter said, "Brilliant. I used to carry my babies on my hip in the 70s. I wish I'd thought of this." Others remarked on the idea's potential. Another user wrote, "You could make maternity pants that transform into this after the baby is born." Of course, Claudia is now a huge supporter of Jean's idea, and of Jean herself. She'll never forget how grateful she felt when she finally understood that confusing image. Ava was so well cared for that she was never out of sight, not even for a moment. Needless to say, Claudia now feels completely confident leaving her baby in Jean's care again. When Claudia wrote the GoFundMe page, here's part of what she said. "My niece Jean is so excited to design a working prototype. Let's encourage her to use her creativity to come up with something wonderful that will help caregivers everywhere." The crowdfunding page had already raised over $215, with many people pledging to support Jean. One user commented, "I'll donate next Thursday when I get paid." "You're a very clever and bright young lady. Never forget that, sweetheart." But Claudia wasn't the only mom to receive a surprise from her babysitter. Except, what this mom experienced was far less pleasant. You'd think asking your mom to babysit would be the easiest option, but that's not always true, as this mom's story shows. Claudia's typical protectiveness wasn't just due to being a mother or a first-time mom. She had extensive experience with children, coming from such a large family. However, she had also gone through a traumatic event in the past. Claudia had already lost a child, her 3-month-old daughter Janelle, who passed away in 2011. Little Janelle died in a hospital in their hometown of Sainte Croix due to a mix-up of medications. Claudia was absolutely devastated. This explains her strong attachment and concern for her baby, Ava. Claudia and her fiancé moved to the United States shortly after she became pregnant with Ava. Claudia had never imagined she would have the chance to have more children and was shocked when they were told they could have more. The couple relocated to receive better medical care and to be closer to their family. They had 2 other children and were told that they would not be able to have more after the death of little Janelle. They viewed their pregnancy as the greatest blessing and knew they had to move to America as soon as they could. They were surrounded by support. The viral post shared Claudia's reasoning for the move, and she felt that in any situation, she would have help, just as she did with baby Ava. Moving had given her a great sense of security and love from her family and friends. The baby was the greatest blessing and the necessary addition to their family after the loss of Janelle. The family thought they would never recover, but they succeeded with a new life in the family. Janelle lives on through little Ava and the family as a whole. Claudia, speaking about the story of her life and the tragic events that preceded their new journey, said, "They helped me so much. Without my friends and family, I might have gone mad when my daughter died. The doctors offered me medication for depression, but I refused it because, with a family like mine, I never would have had the chance to fall into depression." If you enjoyed the story, don't hesitate to give a thumbs up to the video and, most importantly, share it with your friends and loved ones.